Years ago, I had the opportunity to study over in the Holy Land, and we saw, many, many different sites, but one of the ones that kind of fascinated me was going to a cemetery. I know that doesn't sound like the most exciting thing to do, but I remember going to a specifically Jewish, cemetery, and of course over there, all the tombs are above the ground. They're in these stone boxes and so forth because they can't dig down too easily because most of all that area in Jerusalem is all on rock, so it's hard to dig down 6 feet. So they're all raised up. All these tombs are raised up. And what was fascinating is you looked at all these tombs and you just see acres full of them. Every one of them had stones, little stones on top of them. Some, strategically placed or organized. Some that looked like somebody just dumped a bucket of stones on top of these, particular, grave sites. I remember, when somebody from our group had asked, so what's with all the stones? It looked like somebody just kind of stood and played a game, who can get the stone to stay on top, And, but the leader of our group said, well, this is a Jewish tradition. This is something that Jewish people do, and they've been doing it for years. And basically what they do is, of that loved one, they go and they place a stone when they go to visit that grave. And they place that stone there because, it lets that person know, it lets the other family members know that even in death, that person is not forgotten, that person is still prayed for, and that person still lives on in the memory of others. So whenever they go to a grave, they do that. They take and they put a stone on there so that, again, even in death, that person is still always remembered. Today, I'm sure many of you, just like myself, will head out to the cemetery, and I'm going to go and spruce up my mother's grave. So, Sherry, I got it covered. I'll get the plants today, okay? So, she's usually first at doing that kind of stuff, but I'll get it. But I'll go there, I'll spruce it up, and of course I look at other grave sites, and I think people are doing that same thing, just sprucing up that grave site of their loved one, or it's mom there, so they're going to pay that love and respect and remembering again. You look around and you see all the tombstones have flowers, or they'll leave little things at it, little memories, and again, so that person is remembered even in death. I don't know if you know the practice. Okay, so we have a votive candle stand back there. And some people are pretty faithful, about every day coming and lighting a candle. And of course, that is to offer prayers for someone. And it's something that I always, when I walk into this building, this church, I always look over there. I don't know who that candle is lit for, but I always say to myself, let me remember that person in my prayers today, whoever that is, whatever that situation is. That practice kind of came about in the early church, when, the Christians had to meet in secret, okay? And a lot of times they were meeting in caves, and they were meeting, in places that were hidden, all right? Well, that community, they knew who belonged to that community, all right? But let's say somebody on that particular day couldn't make it. So Mary, okay, was going to show up that evening because they got together and said, let's meet tonight, and, we will have Mass, we'll pray, we'll, celebrate the Eucharist, but maybe Mary couldn't make it. So she'd sneak up there earlier in the day, and she'd take a candle and put it somewhere, then she'd put her initials in there. And so that way, when the people came to celebrate liturgy that night, is that they would say, Mary couldn't be here, so let's remember Mary in our prayers for whatever reason. And of course, as we didn't have to hide in secret anymore, we still continued with those votive candle stands. And you'll see that in almost every Catholic church. The importance of all of this, and why I kind of bring up these different examples, is the whole idea of what kind of Jesus is saying to us today. He's telling us that, all right, I'm going to leave you. All right, he gives this last final discourse, this speech, this whole John 14 that we've been listening to over the last couple of weeks, is supposedly at the Last Supper, and that's, he's telling him, look, I'm not going to be with you. It's almost like it's his last will and testament. He gathered them all together, and he's saying, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. But he's telling them, this is what life is going to be like. But something very important And that is that I'm never going to leave you. That I'm always going to be with you. Now, you might not see me really present, physically present with you, but I'm going to be with you. I don't care in death and dying, in life, I'm going to be with you. I'm going to be there. And I think that's one of the strongest messages that we can get from this particular gospel today, is that we're not alone. And I think sometimes we find ourselves feeling like, where is God? Where is Jesus? And, that creates some of that doubt and creates some of that frustration and anxiety in us because we just feel like we're alone. And I guess, what's the reasoning behind that feeling alone? Is it just you're shutting him out? Because I can tell you, he tells us right here and now, I'm with you. And I'm always going to be with you. All you have to do is call upon me, and I'm there with you. Now, I don't know how all of this works. I really don't. I can't even give you the perfect, explanation about when I call upon Jesus, that all of a sudden, I just feel his presence. I mean, I don't know if there's a formula. I don't know if there's the perfect prayer, but I do know it in my life, and I can't define it in any other way or identify it in any other way but to say it's just the Holy Spirit. It's just the Holy Spirit. He's with me. I did 5 funerals last weekend, 5 funerals in 5 days, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back and say, oh, feel sorry for me, all right? But I sometimes step back and I think, how do I get through this? How do I get through celebrating the life of these people who just lost their mother, or these people who just lost their son to suicide, or these people over here, they're celebrating the wonderful life, of their 90-plus-year-old father. I don't know sometimes how it happens, but all I know is I say, take over, because I can't do this. People, you know it when I have the same response I give to people all the time when they'll say, hey, that was a good homily, or I really liked what you did right there. And most of the time I turn and I say the same thing. It's just the Holy Spirit. I just show up. It's all the Holy Spirit. I just show up. But I think that's part of the key, is showing up and having that faith and having that belief that he tells us we're not alone. We're not alone. And I don't know, like I said, what the magic formula is, because I really don't think there's any magic in this. But I just know deep in my heart and in my mind, that's what I turn to. And I can tell you deep in my heart and my mind, somehow it lifts me through. So I think today, we think about that, and we, in our own reflection, in our own prayer, we say to ourselves, how am I recognizing that he's right there with me? What am I doing? Because I can tell you today, and I don't know if it's a breakup of a relationship, but he's there. I don't know if, something going on at work, that work is just so challenging right now, but he's saying, I'm there. I know some of you have lost dear loved ones in the last year or just even recently, but I can tell you he's saying, I'm there. I'm there with you. But it takes us to say, please, I recognize that. And thank you for being there, Lord, and I know you're going to get me through this. I know you're going to get me through this. Just remember, the suffering still happens. The challenges still happen. But oh my gosh, is it so much easier and so much better when we realize he's walking with us. During baptism liturgies, one of the readings that I always use, of course, is, when Jesus, in the Gospel of Matthew, the final words that Jesus gives to, his disciples, go out and baptize in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, teach everyone, everything that I've shared with you. And then he says, and I will be with you always. I'll be with you always to the end of time. I love that reading. And then I always talk about that painting. And you've heard it, brought up many times before. And some people, that painting is real important to in their life. It's that picture of Jesus knocking at a door. All right? And it was painted back in the 1880s, 90s. Who is it? Leah, what's it? Holman Hunt. Holman Hunt. All right? He painted that picture, but he left the doorknob off of the door on Jesus' side that's knocking. He purposely left that off because the door is on the other side, or the doorknob is on the other side, meant for us to open it. But you got to do it. You're the one that has to open that door. He's sort of like, what's, I can't think of the name of the show, Sheldon, okay, from Big Bang Theory, always knocking at people's door, always doing that. Matthew. Jesus is irritating. Okay, no lightning there. But he's irritating to a point where all he wants you to do is open the door and recognize that he's with you. My brothers and sisters, it's all the Holy Spirit. You just have to show up. You just have to show up.